welcome to the Festival of Hope. I'm so excited. We're, 5 weeks in to our Festival of Hope, and we're talking about the experience of writing and journaling. As many of you know, we've started the Festival of Hope to explore the traditions, rituals, and holidays that are a part of the end of the year. And what we discovered was there were a few open spots. And so we wanted to take those open spots, like this week, which doesn't have an identified holiday, and assign them instead to rituals. So rituals that we believe will be helpful to you, rituals that maybe you haven't explored before. And so this week, as we all know, we are exploring the concept of journaling and the value really in writing, whatever form that takes for you. So I am so excited to show you this book, which is from scratch. We are joined today by an author, actor, and director. I mean, Tembi's got it all going on right now. And not only that, but I also want to say that she has been not only a presenter for an attendee at Camp Widow, a presenter at Camp Widow, a board member on the board of Soaring Spirits International. So Tembi and Soaring Spirits and Tembi and I have a long-standing relationship, and for which I am always grateful. But whenever we're together, it always feels like we're just chatting as friends. So Tembi, I'm just going to turn it over to you to just do a little hello and tell people a little bit about yourself.
Oh my gosh, Michelle, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. You know, I would chat with you anytime, anywhere, because I always leave a little wiser, a little more grounded, a little more uplifted. And you're right, I first came to Soaring Spirits as an attendee. I was newly widowed. It was my first year out, and I was upside down. I didn't know my head from a tail. That was 8 years ago, almost 8 years ago now. And since we're talking about journaling, I will tell you, I went to that first session at Camp Widow, and then went up to my hotel room and I had to write it down. like I'm just gonna jump right into the writing part of it, right? Because I didn't know what I had just witnessed or experienced, and I didn't trust that I could get on the phone and explain it to anybody. And I just wanted to like kind of document it. And some of it was just noodling, right? Like just kind of ruminating on the wisdom that I had just heard in the room and things I wanted to just didn't want to forget. Right. And a lot of it was, I just didn't want to forget that. That was such a wise thing that widowed person had said. So right there, that's me, Soaring Spirits, Camp Widow, and journaling, like in a nutshell.
All in a nutshell.
All in a nutshell. And of course,
well, the other thing too, Tembi, that I love about that concept is that when we capture the feelings of where we are, we have that place to go back to. And I think in 2020, right, like there's so much to process right now that it's about, yes, if you're in a grief process, writing down where you are, even if you feel like I'm not sure I'll ever want to remember it. I'm telling you, it makes such a difference to be able to see yourself as you were at that time and then watch what happens next. But I think for 2020, right, like there's so much to process.
And you know what? There's no way we cannot process this in the moment. Yeah. We simply can't. Yeah. It's rolling in too fast, too hard, too sudden, too intense. It's not just the singularity of our individual lives. It is what's happening in our immediate community, at the city level, at the state level, at the national level, at the global level. No human can process all of that. Period. End of story. So what I find, and I am of the belief that taking a moment to just connect with ourselves on the page. I always think of writing. And this is okay. I'm just kind of jumping in. Is this fine, Michelle?
Do. Absolutely. Yes. Dive right in.
Yeah, is that it is a kind of a check-in. It's a check-in with me. Period. End of story. It's not for anybody else. It doesn't even have to make sense. I may never reread it again. But for that moment, it's sort of like, do you love musicals?
I absolutely do.
Okay. So in the musical, the whole idea of the musical is that you're going along and then the emotion comes so big, so strong, that just speaking the words isn't enough. You have to sing them out, right? And that's how you go along, and then we break out into song, right? It builds up and then you can't hold it and you have to sing. Writing for me in grief is just the same thing. I'm going along, I'm holding on, I'm keeping it together, Oh, you know what? It's too much. I need to sit with myself and I got to write it out. And sometimes that write it out isn't like full pretty sentences. It's not like, it doesn't have a beginning, middle, and an end. It's all over the place. It's, oh my God, I'm so frustrated right now. I'm so tired. I could barely get out of bed. It's really the kind of immediate, what they call first thoughts.
Yeah. And I think that what's interesting too is that I love that musical metaphor because it's so true, right? It's oftentimes really strong emotion is what drives us to the page. Like, and it's usually not strong, happy emotions for me
no,
personally.
ever.
Usually strappy, those are like where you call the friend and you celebrate with the people, but really hard stuff where I just, like you said, I can't hold it anymore. And I want to just also circle back to what you said. It doesn't have to be pretty. I want to say to everyone who's watching, it doesn't have to be complete sentences. No. I had this misconception that journaling always meant being able to have the ability to sit down and write complete sentences and paragraphs that made sense. And oftentimes when I'm feeling too emotional, I just don't feel like I've got that. But what I discovered for myself was that just writing the words, like if I wrote down, I have these 3 feelings, sometimes just those 3 words will be enough to trigger me to write whatever else may come up or to explain those feelings. But giving myself the freedom to say, you know what, I'm going to write down these 3 feelings I'm having right now because I don't know where else to put them or what else to do with them. And I really resonate with what you said. It's that explosion of, I got to do something with this.
It's raw. And it's raw. And it's a place to be raw with your grief in a way that is not editorialized. It's not judged. It's for no one's eyes but yourself. It is a way to say what I call the things I couldn't say out loud to others because maybe I was ashamed of them. I was embarrassed. I was afraid. Or it wasn't, I thought they're going to get crazy, or I've said this to them already 10 times. How can I say it to them again? They must be bored now with me. And I'm like, you know what? This is just for me. And initially now, by the way, I was a journaler, someone who did write, kind of my whole life. But I will be honest and say, I was not like, today, the sky is beautiful and it's great. And we did this lovely it wasn't a recap of my day. There are people who are very good recappers. Like they journal almost as a way to sort of create a chronicle of things that happened. I was never that kind of journaler. I was the kind of journaler that I would be emotionally spun out and then I need a place to write about it, right? So I did that throughout college. When I, lived abroad in Italy, I would write. And so when I go back to read my journals from many years ago, often it's just like, oh my God, that was negative, and then it was this bad thing happened, and then there'd be like 6 months of gaps where
Nothing.
I said nothing, and then
things were really good right then.
And by the way, and I think people judge that, and don't judge it. Because your process, first of all, it's not for anyone but you. And who cares how often, little, or frequent you do or don't do it. But when you feel moved to do it, please do it. Now, when I became a widow, and I started journaling, it took on a different element because I was doing a couple of things. I was both kind of trying to sort of get the raw emotions on the page, but I was also kind of in a conversation and in a dialogue with my beloved. And I would do it in the quiet evening. And then I realized the ritual piece of it that would kind of give me comfort. It was like pulling out my journal suddenly became like pulling on a blanket or putting on one of his old shirts, or I would light a candle sometimes and just make a little bit of time for myself as a way to connect to him. And then, even then, on the page, it might not be pretty sentences. It might just be, I remembered this today. I wish you were here for this. By the way, I'm mad at you for this. Kind of a direct conversation. So there are many,
I was just going to say, it's so interesting to discover ritual later, because the same, like I think what kept me always from being a regular journaler is my perfectionism. I'm trying to be a recovering perfectionist, but I still will confess I am in the midst of it still every day. But what kept me from journaling was that I would start on Monday and I would go Tuesday, and then I get to Wednesday and forget, and then I didn't feel like I could do Thursday. And so to give us the freedom to say, it might be 6 months before you pick up your journal again, is such a powerful way to start. And then, as you said, the ritual of it, if it becomes something that you go to for comfort, takes that to a whole different level. And so my perfectionist self wanted to jump right into being like in the ritual without actually creating a ritual. That's what I've discovered we're all these years later, right?
Yeah, and so some of that I tell people, get something pretty that you like to write in. You know, you can get a spiral notebook from CVS, totally fine, legitimate. I've got a stack of them, but you can also get something really pretty that pulls you to it. The other thing I used to do, I put a photo of him at the very front of it. So sometimes even just opening it and looking at that photo connected me to him, even if I didn't even write anything that day. Right? This journal can be a kind of mosaic, a patchwork quilt of many different, styles, modalities, approaches. It can have photographs, it can have drawings, it can have cut out pieces, it could be have collage. There's so many ways in. It's as authentic and unique as you, the individual, and your own process and where you are that day, and it might be today might be different from 6 months from now, and it's all okay. But the gift in it is, one, you are chronicling your experience, whether you know it or not, even in the fragments, right? You've captured a moment in time, like a photograph, right? A moment in time. But the other thing that it's doing is you are kind of beginning with that to make sense of it, of your bigger experience. So effectively, initially, my early writing is often sort of like just kind of getting the facts out. Like early, sometimes the writing was like, I can't believe it's 6 weeks since you passed. This morning I had this for breakfast. You left this in the fridge and I found it today. It was literally kind of like just the facts, right? But those facts tell a story. When I go back and look at those early things, even if it's just 6 sentences, 6 words, it tells me exactly where I was at that moment. And over time, I began to see not only that I was chronicling, then I could begin to make sense of it. And then I could begin to sort of be on the road of healing, because now I can look back and go, wow, that's where I was, and look where I am now.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's the other beauty of journaling that was lost on me in those early attempts at journaling, because I felt like, there wasn't enough to look back at. But even when I open, and still sometimes happens, I'll find a beautiful journal that someone gave me, usually my mother, and it's always lovely, and I'm always like, oh, mom gave me this, I really should use it, and I'll start. But even now, I'll find a journal that has the beginnings of whatever I was feeling that day, and as you said, it's like a time capsule. It's what was going on at that time, and it gives me a glimpse at a time, a different place. And what we're hoping for this Festival of Hope, especially, walking through 2020 into 2021, is to provide everyone who's watching with tools and resources that can help you process all this big stuff that's happening. And as we're walking through all of these holidays that are going to be different than they've been before, to have ways to be able to express what that means to you in the moment. And then again, next year, what does that look like? Where might we be in another year? And what will this capsule tell us, right, about ourselves?
Well, and I'm to that end, I will say, to the specificity of this season, as we go into these holidays and the rolling nature of it, so much is going to be coming at us. And very soon, the commercials are going to start running. And the commercials of like the happy holidays and the family. I imagine the advertising industry is going to do slightly less of it this year, because many people aren't going to be able to travel home. But nonetheless, there'll be those tableaus of the reunion and the gorgeousness. And so every time I would see one of those, it would stir up so much in me that I needed a place to sort of have the reality of my own lived and grief experience, right? So right now is a really good time to do this kind of work if you're so inclined. The other thing I would say for anyone who is in a household with someone else who is also grieving, a child, a spouse, a sibling, a parent, my daughter and I did side-by-side journaling. She was very little. And I was just like, draw whatever you want to draw in it. But I need this quiet time for the both of us to draw, to write out or draw or have that. And like sometimes just making 15 minutes, just 15 minutes out of, there's 24 hours in a day, but 15 minutes it's just for you was a beautiful thing. And I think it modeled for her that your feelings count.
Yeah.
What you're going through counts and it matters. Mommy sees it. I know we can, like I'm in this with you. It's honoring and it gives them that little bit of space. And sometimes she wouldn't want to do it and she might just curl up and I might write, but I think it's important to know that it doesn't also have to be a singular experience. If you're in a household with others, it can be an in tandem experience. And that can be very uplifting, especially if you light a candle or, and anyway, I don't want to hog all the time because I know.
Absolutely love that, especially because part of the driving force of Festival of Hope was recognizing that we're going to be in our homes more. It's getting darker, the winter months are coming, and so we have this time, like more time than we normally have, and actually really honoring that what the winter calls us to is reflection. Yes. It calls us to the hibernation of the season, and that if we can find ways to support ourselves and our families as we do it, side by side journaling is such a beautiful way, and you can either share or not share depending on who you are and where you are, right? Yeah.
Because she might say in hers, I'm mad at mommy. Right. And that's okay too. And that's okay. The other thing that I would say to that is if there's a way to ritualize the way into the writing and the way out of the writing, you're more inclined to do it. So what that might mean is this. Sometimes I might put on a little bit of music in addition to writing the candle. Just kind of settles me in a little bit. It doesn't mean I'm trying to write beautiful prose. It just means I got to shake off all the day and I got to settle into me. Because ultimately what we're doing over the course of our grief, we're getting to know our grieving hearts early on, right? And we're getting to sort of try to make sense of us in this new world. And so I needed to kind of just, settle in. So play a little music, light a candle. I'm into movement a little bit. If you like, a little bit of dance or a yoga position or whatever it is, it doesn't, I guess the message is it can be as personal and as unique to you as feels authentic and good to you.
And also, I think taking away from this conversation, the idea that journaling is a gift you can give yourself. Yeah. And it's a gift you can give to others in your family and in your life through modeling, through side-by-side journaling, through even, so we're going to talk briefly about the gift of journaling. So I told you that we had a guest, Norm, who was Trento, who was on with us early in the week. And what he has created is a journal that you can personalize. And so he is the person, I have never met anyone who loves journaling as much as Norm. He is very enthusiastic about journaling, a process about healing and what you can do with it. He is really very, very excited. Anyways, the way I came to know him was that he is a partner of our print company. So the print company who works for Soaring Spirits, and they came up with this concept of personalizing your journal, which means you can choose your own, like for you, your picture could be the front cover of this particular journal. You can there's just a million ways that you can personalize it. And what they've offered is for nonprofits to partner with them and be able to give back to the community through because they really want people to journal. So we are going to put up the Soaring Spirit site. We do have, and I put it up for two reasons. Obviously, we're always grateful for any kind of fundraising, but it is really that I believe in this journal, this particular kind of journal. They have been so good to us, and they have given people the freedom to create something. And what Norm says is almost exactly what you said, Tembi, which is you want something that draws you to it.
Yes.
So you create a journal that says, I want to pick you up. I want to interact with you because you're so beautiful, and you reflect whatever is happening in my life, and you have the opportunity to make a new one for a new season. So if the season initially is, I'm writing about the challenges I'm having right now, either because I'm grieving or because I'm living in the world in 2020, that's one journal, right? And then the next journal might be what's next. And the next journal after that could be another season. And so I just love the idea of having seasons of your journaling and being able to have your actual journal reflect the season.
I think that is so beautiful and so brilliant. And I love that because it, I think one of the things I learned in writing was that often when I would meet myself, and I say meet my grief on the page, because that's what I was really doing, was I was trying to sort of understand this world and me in this world and what was going on and why I felt the way I felt, when I felt angry, when I felt confused, when I felt sad, when I felt, that, meeting myself on the page is this beautiful opportunity to begin to better understand myself when I go out into the world. Yeah. So for example, I might write something, a thought might come to me, I write out, oh my gosh. And then I would find myself a week later being like, I could better articulate to the other people in my life what I was going through because I'd actually sort of kind of teased it out myself. And sometimes I would just write, I'm mad, I'm angry, I'm mad, I'm angry. It was like, that was the extent of the list. And that also let me know, you know what? I'm not in a good place right now. I need help. I need people to know this has brought up these feelings for me, right? And so it's a beautiful gift. I cannot recommend it enough, especially right now. Write down all those beautiful memories, add pictures, add color, add whatever it is. And also, it can be an oral journal. There were times when I would be in my car and I would literally just talk into my phone. I know it sounds, but you can create a voice memo because some people, they don't want to write or they feel, my handwriting's too messy. By the way, everything is misspelled the handwriting is gosh awful. And I know because I went back to those journals when I tried to write from scratch and I'm like, what the heck is that chicken scratch? Right? I was like, I don't even know what that word is supposed to be.
I cannot guess.
Doesn't matter. I always think somebody, when I'm gone, if somebody finds those journals and we're just looked at the journal, they'd be like, wow,
yes.
Life did she lead? Like, because it's all just like, but I laugh and I say that from a loving place because I can do that now looking back. And I know that there were also beautiful moments in between, days when I laughed and had joy or days when I felt a little more grounded. And sometimes that's in there too. So yeah.
I love that. And we're about a few minutes from closing up, and I want to get to a piece that I had hoped to ask you. Not all journaling is intended to become something, right? The process of journaling is the value itself. But for you, your relationship with words and your relationship with writing did lead you down a path. And we talked a little bit about the difference between journaling for the process that you were in at any point in your life, it sounds like, while you were bursting into song. I want anybody on the call and everyone who remembers this going forward, watching it recording, to imagine yourself when it's time to journal bursting into song, because I love that so much. But anyways, yours became not exactly, right? It didn't be exactly, but it was the foreground for this beautiful book. And I'll say again for everyone who's here, and ask Jenny if she would please put it in the chat, that From Scratch is a spectacularly beautiful book that is a memoir and includes story that you won't forget, but also connects food and recipes. I mean, it's such a unique experience. So I would just love for you to spend a couple minutes telling us what was it like to shift into that.
Yeah, so a journal and a finished book are not the same thing. And what I will say is, and a journal may help you get to a memoir, right? So effectively, what I began writing that book 5 years after my husband passed away. actually on the 5th anniversary is when I said, you know what, it's time for me to take all the writings that I've been doing, and I feel like they actually could be a book-length memoir. And that the way I use the journals to write a book was simply as a way to go back and better understand 5 years out, 5 years of widowhood. I knew more things. I had more lived experience with my grief. I did 5 years out than I did day one, week 5 months. And I couldn't remember it all because, by the way, that first year was a blur. And the journals, by going back and looking at the journals, I could see, and it helped me to write about that first year, right? Because some of the clues were there. But I was doing it from the observing voice of being 5 years down the road. I was looking back. So memoirs are looking back. And so I used it as a living document to help me kind of begin to understand where I was. But the other piece I will say about a book, if anyone chooses to go down the path of exploring that, you get to choose what goes in your book. And everything that's in your journal is not going to be in your book. That should give you a lot of comfort. And the beautiful thing is you're going to work with an editor. And so at any moment, you get to pick what's in the final draft, the thing that's actually going to be on a shelf that people read. And being in choice is a really important thing. So that know that just because you're writing it today in a journal, don't hold back because you think, oh my gosh, somebody's going to look at this and say, no. And even if you do write a book from it, nobody still has to look at that page. You may pick one sentence out of 30 pages of a journal, and that one sentence starts you on writing a scene that could be in a book. So that's all I'm going to say. They are different things, and do not feel beholden to do one, or I would encourage you to write, but I certainly do not feel beholden that you have to turn a journal into something else.
Yeah.
There are whole journals that will never be anything else but a journal.
Yeah.
For me.
I love it. I don't see, did I miss, Jenny, you're going to let me know if I missed any questions. I don't see anything. We are right on time. So let's just say if anybody, okay, looks good. I want to just say this in closing. First of all, thank you, Tembi, for the beauty that you put in the world and for sharing it with us here at Soaring Spirits. But secondly, I want to just say to everyone again, that what you have the opportunity to do with journaling is give yourself the gift of free expression. And that what Tembi said about her journal being a living document, that's what you're creating. A living document for yourself, a living document for going forward. And whether that turns into something or is always the living document, it gives you a point in time to come back to learn more about yourself. And so your 5 years from now self will look back at what you write in 2020 and remember what you learned in that time, help you process what happened even years later. And so that living document is no longer just you pouring things on the page. It becomes, as you grow, a record of your growth and a way to reconnect with yourself and know yourself even better. So this opportunity to talk about it is wonderful. I hope you all have found it as inspiring and lovely. It's always just a gift to be with Tembi. So I'm super, super happy about that. And I thank you all for being a part of the call today. We are looking forward to tomorrow's entertainment. So don't forget, we've got entertainment tomorrow. You already have an inbox with a message from us with your new for next week. What we're working on next week is what are you going to grow? So look forward to some garden tours. We've got some really cool stuff for next week. So Tembi, you've got a lot of thank yous in here, and I am super grateful for all of you. So everyone, good night. Be well. We will look forward to seeing you tomorrow for entertainment and next week for our next week of the Festival of Hope.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.